Picture it, a lone warrior on a narrow wooden bridge, arrows buried in his armor, struck again and again, and still he does not fall. His enemies, the story goes, were too afraid to approach him because even after he had died, he was still standing. That image is one of the most famous in Japanese storytelling. The man is Musashibo Benkei, the giant warrior monk who served and died for the doomed General Minamoto no Yoshitsune. Almost everyone in Japan knows that image. Almost no one asks how much of it actually happened. This is the story of Benkei, and of how thin the real record is beneath one of history's most beloved legends. Start with the most basic fact of any biography, and Benkei's breaks down immediately. We do not actually know when or where he was born. No contemporary record fixes a birthplace, a birth year, or even his parents' names. What survives instead is centuries of folklore trying to fill that gap, and the stories it tells are extraordinary. Some legends claim he was the son of a local temple deity. Others say his mother carried him 18 months before he was born, already large, with hair and teeth already in, marked from his first breath as more than an ordinary child. As a boy, he was reportedly nicknamed Oniwaka, demon child, for a temper and a size that frightened the adults around him. None of this is biography. It is the kind of origin story later generations build around a man they already consider extraordinary, working backward from legend to invent a birth worthy of it. What can be said with more confidence is that he became a Sohei, a warrior monk who trained in combat as seriously as in scripture, common at temples like Mount Hiei in this period. Accounts agree he was driven out for violent, unruly behavior and spent his youth moving between temples rather than settling into religious life. One detail holds constant across nearly every version of his story, reliable or not: his size. Every account agrees Benkei was unusually large and immensely strong. Worth noting, since even where tales cannot be trusted, the shape of how he was remembered rarely changes. The most famous story about young Benkei is also among the least verifiable, and it is the story said to have brought him to Yoshitsune in the first place. According to legend, first written down centuries after both men were dead, Benkei vowed to collect 1,000 swords by challenging warriors across Kyoto to single combat and taking their blades in defeat. Night after night, he waited at Gojo Bridge and won swords from 999 opponents. For his 1,000th attempt, he is said to have picked a fight with a slight, delicate-looking young swordsman crossing the bridge alone, playing a flute. That youth was Minamoto no Yoshitsune, still a teenager, not yet the general who would win a civil war. Benkei, the legend insists, lost, outmaneuvered by speed and skill he had not expected from someone so much smaller than himself. In defeat, he did not ask for mercy. He asked to serve. It is a wonderful story. It is also almost certainly exactly that, a story. No source from Yoshitsune's own lifetime describes such a duel at Gojo Bridge or anywhere else. The tale first appears in chronicles compiled generations later, part of a growing body of legend built around two men who had, by then, become folk heroes. How the two men actually met is far less certain and effectively unrecoverable. What the legend does capture accurately is the outcome. From some point in his youth onward, Benkei attached himself to Yoshitsune with a loyalty that later proved absolute. Here the record firms up because Benkei's fate becomes tied to a man other people were actually writing about. Through the Genpei War, the 5-year conflict that decided who would rule Japan, Benkei is named among Yoshitsune's retainers in the War Chronicles, present at Ichi-no-Tani in 1184 and the naval battle at Dan-no-Ura in 1185 that finally destroyed the Taira clan, a story this channel has told in full previously. He is a supporting figure here, not yet the larger-than-life protector of later legend, but a named, recurring presence at his lord's side. The war's end should have been the start of Yoshitsune's reward. Instead, his own half-brother, Minamoto no Yoritomo, turned against him within months, suspicious of his popularity and his ties to the imperial court. Yoritomo declared him a traitor and had him hunted across the country. It was in this period, not the battlefield glory, but the desperate years as fugitives, that Benkei's loyalty is most reliably documented. He is recorded as one of the small band who stayed with Yoshitsune as they fled Kyoto in disguise, protected only by whoever was still willing to risk sheltering a wanted man. Loyalty that survives victory is common. Loyalty that survives 2 years of being hunted, with nothing left to gain from it, needs no embellishment at all. The fugitives finally reached the far north to the protection of the Oshu Fujiwara clan. Its lord, Fujiwara no Hidehira, sheltered Yoshitsune as a matter of honor. When Hidehira died in 1187, his son Yasuhira inherited both the guest and Yoritomo's relentless pressure to hand him over. In 1189, Yasuhira chose his family's survival over his father's promise and sent troops to Yoshitsune's residence at Koromogawa. What is solidly recorded from that day is stark and brief. Yoshitsune was besieged, and rather than be taken, he killed his wife and young daughter, and then took his own life. Benkei is recorded among those who died there defending him. That core fact is accepted by historians as, at minimum, highly likely. Everything else, the image this episode opened with, comes from somewhere else entirely. The vivid staging of Benkei's death, alone on a bridge, absorbing arrow after arrow, remaining upright even after he had died, so terrifying no soldier dared approach his body, first appears in the Gikkeiki, a chronicle compiled roughly 2.5 centuries after 1189, then expanded further by the No and Kabuki stages after that. None of this makes the scene worthless. It makes it something specific, not an eyewitness account, but 800 years of storytellers agreeing this man's loyalty deserved the most unforgettable death scene they could build for him. The legend did not stop growing at Koromogawa. It kept being rewritten for the stage, and one episode from the fugitive years became the most enduring of all. As Yoshitsune's party fled north, the story goes, they reached a guarded checkpoint at Ataka, manned by an official named Togashi, with orders to watch for exactly the group in front of him. Benkei's solution, as later drama tells it, was audacity. He disguised his lord as a lowly porter, then presented himself as the leader of monks collecting donations for a temple, reciting aloud from a blank scroll as though it were an official subscription list, a kanjincho, while Togashi looked on, apparently unconvinced. To protect the disguise, Benkei then did something almost unthinkable in a warrior culture built on hierarchy. He struck his own lord in public, scolding him as a clumsy servant in front of the very guard who might have recognized Yoshitsune's face. Togashi, the story goes, saw through it anyway, and let them pass regardless, moved by a loyalty too extraordinary to punish. There is no contemporary record this checkpoint scene happened as told, or possibly at all. What is certain is what happened to the story afterward. Adapted into the No play Ataka, and then the Kabuki play Kanjincho, it became one of the most performed works in classical Japanese theater, still staged today, 800 years after the man at its center supposedly died on a bridge no one actually described in writing at the time. That gap is the whole story of Musashibo Benkei. Almost nothing about him is nailed down. Almost everything about him is unforgettable anyway. Japan did not remember Benkei because the record demanded it. It remembered him because a country once decided a certain kind of loyalty was worth telling and retelling until it grew larger than any single fact could hold. If this story was worth your time, subscribe. Forgotten Japan tells the stories that the famous tales of samurai and shoguns leave out.